Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Pigskins and Pageantry, where our analysis may or may not be between the uprights. Yes, field goals, or perhaps more appropriately, missed field goals, playing a major role in the games yesterday. Joining me, as always, is our representative from the Alabama fandom, who is somewhat sensitive to the subject of kickers, although they've had some luck of late. But anyway, welcome, Jesse. How are you? I see you have a guest there.
I do. All of a sudden, it was like the music started, and she was like, "Oh, it's time." And for those that are just listening, my cat just decided to jump in, make an appearance. But I'm always going to be triggered by Alabama kickers, despite how lovely Will has been to us and how consistent he has been. But it's still a touchy subject because of how it was when I was a student there.
Right.
But I would just like to start off by saying, not that he listens to this or probably knows what a podcast is, but Mr. Bill, who I met prior to the Bama game at a restaurant bar while I was eating pizza and having a beer, who was decked out in Alabama gear and started at Alabama in 1964. I hope you enjoyed the game. I hope it was everything you wanted and that you got home safely. And called an Uber, and I just wish you the best.
Well, that's fantastic. Yes, we wish him the best. So, as you can see, Matt is not here. He's got tons of going on and not able to join us. But trust me when I say that Tennessee Vol fans are very excited at this point in the season. So, still a lot to be left, a lot to be played, a lot left to be played. But you know, beating Florida always feels good if you're a Vol fan. So, they've got that going for them at this point in the season. So, without further ado, let's get into those games.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right. Well, first off, let's get started with Kent State at Georgia. Georgia winning this one 32-16. I got the point in this one. Kind of surprised to have to talk about this one. It's one of those sleepy noon kickoffs. I think that affected Georgia maybe a little bit. We had three turnovers. The defense gave up a ton of yards after the catch, a ton of yards after contact. I know there's a possibility of, swapping in people who are not starters and things like that. And I get that, but it was still a little disappointing to see the amount of yards given up. I know if you're looking at the stat sheet, the yardage there is not really, it's kind of lopsided in the favor of Georgia, 529 to 281, but still some of the tackling issues that I saw there got everybody with some cause for concern right now. Also, I know Kent State pulling out stops in terms of play calling. They did a fake punt. They had some really different play calls that Georgia doesn't typically see, and I know that may be part of it. Just one of those offenses that you don't see that often, or at least in terms of play calling, maybe not in overall style, but sometimes in play calling. But it does worry me a little bit that perhaps they gave offenses a blueprint for success against Georgia's defense, perhaps, maybe at least partially. Still, it's nice to be able to learn lessons and still win. Hopefully they're working on things this week in practice as we get into in-conference schedule. So, that's really all I have on it. I am disappointed that it wasn't as big of a blowout. I know that sounds a little bit nitpicky, but at the same time, there is a little bit of concern. I don't know, Jesse, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think the score is indicative of this game. If you're someone that didn't watch it or listen to it and you just look at the score, you probably will easily bypass it. But I don't think the score indicates how this game was. The Bulldogs played like a team that paid way too much attention to all the accolades and the hype of the first three games and didn't take this one seriously. And it showed. It's like you said, they struggled to put away Kent State, which should have been a sleepy, easy one. and they didn't really look like the nation's #1 team. They turned it over 3 times. They struggled in the red zone. They were burned on a fake punt, gave up several big plays to Kent State. And it was their worst performance of the season, especially coming off of a game, like South Carolina. So I think it's fine. Brock Bowers still did very well. And everything I read as far as looking for the stats and all people are talking about is Brock Bowers. Stetson Bennett threw his first interception of the season. So a lot that they need to clean up. Kirby Smart said that he is not at all displeased with his team's performance. He pointed out that the Bulldogs never had to punt. They blocked a punt for a safety and finished with 529 to 281 edge in the total yardage. But still, I think there's a lot there to clean up. And, it doesn't really matter how many starters are out. You need to have the depth chart, especially considering how well UGA recruits. And like we've been talking about, it's something everyone's going to struggle with. But still, it's like you mentioned, I think there's some things there that other teams watching film will pick up on and maybe try to use to their advantage as they go into playing the Bulldogs.
Yeah. And I really want to say more about this one, but we have more in the speed round that will come in a later mini-sode. So, and that'll just to get more granular with it and not spend too much time on it right this second. But anyway, let's move on to Mizzou at Auburn. The dumpster fire game of the week.
Bad news Bears game of the week. Dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Woof.
So anyway, Auburn did win this one 17-14. Jesse getting the point in this one. But first, let's have a little history lesson here. So they were talking about Bryan Harsin and Eli Drinkowicz and just their relationship and stuff like that. So in 2012, Bryan Harsin was taking over as head coach for Gus Malzahn at Arkansas State. You recall Malzahn, of course, was taking the job at Auburn. Drinkowicz was part of the current staff there at Arkansas State, and Harsin kept him on as the running backs coach. There's a little bit to that story too, where I think basically he met with the existing staff there, and Drinkowicz is like, I really want to be here. And so Harsin respected that. And I guess, just that desire to be there was enough to keep him around. So
I want to circle the wagons.
Yeah. Trust me, coach. I know everything there is to know about Toughness Tuesday. And anyway, so so he kept him around, running backs coach. Then when Boise State hired Harsin as head coach in 2014, he brought him along as well, first as the tight ends coach and then as OC in 2015. 4 years later, Drinkowicz landed a head coaching gig at App State, and then 1 year later, he went to Mizzou. So that's kind of a little bit of the history of there. But he does feel indebted to Bryan Harsin. So I don't know if that had anything to do with this game or not. But Zach Calzada, just to cover a few more bases on this game, Zach Calzada will undergo season-ending surgery on his non-throwing shoulder and apply for medical red shirt. So we've noticed him absent in the consideration for QB, assuming that this is the reason. I guess he's been fighting an injury, but TJ Finley also hurt during the Penn State game. So we saw Robbie Ashford and Holden Gariner. I believe I am pronouncing that correctly because I believe I heard the announcers say that during the game in this game for Auburn. So as we mentioned, special teams miscues for both teams, including Mizzou's chip shot to win at the end of regulation. That Harrison, it's Mevis, right? I think so. I'm pretty sure that's right. Harrison Mevis.
That sounds right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Cause I remember, I obviously listened to it when it happened, but I'm just, pretty sure that's it. Pushed just barely to the right. And then in the first OT, Mizzou held Auburn to a field goal. Then on Mizzou's possession, Nathaniel Pete broke a great run to the outside. And I'm thinking game over. Mizzou is going to shut this thing down. And they did.
Not so fast, my friend.
They did shut it down, just not in the way that we thought or that I thought. He tried to stretch the ball over the goal line, lost it, fumbled into the end zone where Auburn recovered as a touchback.
You can't do anything like that in Jordan Hare. You can't do it.
Right? It's like... So we're finding out it transcends coaches.
It does.
It goes
didn't
beyond
help Penn State, but they must have done something.
because they had weirdness under Chiswick, they had weirdness under Gus Malzahn, and now they've had some strangeness under Harson as well. Speaking of Harson, let's hear what he had to say about this game.
Coach, what a weird game. What was that like for you emotionally?
Yeah, well, first of all, I thought both sides, they fought today. I'm proud of our football team to find a way to win. Coach Drinkowicz, his staff, his football team, they played extremely hard. We knew they would. When it came down to overtime, that's football. You got to make one more play than the other team. We were just able to do that today.
What was your reaction when Mevis from Missouri missed a 26-yarder in the end of regulation?
Well, I mean, we're trying to go out there and block it, right? It comes down to, your last opportunity. And right there, I mean, they had a nice drive. They put themselves in a position, and, we were able to do just enough maybe to influence that kick there. But we were thinking overtime and, not giving up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You don't give up. You play every play. And that was the message this week. You play every single play, and that's exactly what we did. And the result went in our favor today.
When you stand up in front of your team in the locker room after this one, what do you emphasize?
How proud I am of them for playing every play, for fighting. We talked about coming here and having to fight. That's a good football team. And they're well coached, and everything that they were going to do, we knew we had to go out there and fight to win this football game. And it came down to 3 points. A last-second decision right there. I mean, you know what? That's football some days, and I'm really proud of our guys for not giving up and just fighting. And that is the number one thing. That is really what we're here to do. We're here to teach people how to fight, play good football, but that was the result of that, happening today.
1-0 in the SEC. Congratulations, Coach.
1-0. War Eagle, thank you.
And Jesse, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you have to play every play.
Obviously. What is that?
Oh, man.
It's not even prophetic.
What were your thoughts, your reactions to this insane finish?
It's just this game. You shouldn't go to overtime.
That chip shot field goal, man.
We just,
unbelievable.
We were able to pull it out, find a way to win. No, Mizzou found your way to win. They found it.
When he said we found a way to affect the kick somehow, that might be true, but I'm pretty sure he just missed it.
He just screwed it up. And then he later said, after all of the, you have to play every play, and you got to fight. We teach everybody to fight, blah, 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 blah. He said, I think everybody in that locker room is exhausted in a good way. I told our players I'm proud of them. They did what they needed to do to win the football game. I'm sure you're proud because you have a job for another week, because you lose to Mizzou, who I don't know why you said was a well-coached football team, because it's not. You get to be employed another week. You lose to Mizzou, you're not employed another week. You're not. I don't think you are. And the fact that you had to take them to 2 OTs, I still think you're in a very, very, very toasty seat. Eli Drinkowicz is in a flaming hot seat. Carlson's field goal was the only scoring after halftime. Auburn scored both of its touchdowns in the first quarter, and Missouri tied it up with its own 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. That's it. One field goal after halftime. Yeah. The teams combined for 12 consecutive punts in the second half before Auburn had Tank Bigsby being stopped on 4th and 1 from the Mizzou 30-yard line with 1:37 left. And Auburn was 3 for 3 on 4th and short before that late stop. 12 consecutive punts. How boring is that? It's just the pressure's on for Drinkowicz. It was already there. It's hella there now. He is 13 for 14 in his tenure with the Tigers. Mizzou's offense was a struggle bus. They were going 3 and out on 5 of their 7 possessions. Auburn, again, another wild finish in true Auburn fashion. That helps Harson with his job security, but I really think that seat warmer's just getting turned up. Because you lose to Penn State, you take Mizzou to OT, it's not looking good. And Auburn finished with only 217 yards of total offense, and they averaged just 3.3 yards per snap. That's not good.
Yeah, I was thinking going into this game that this was kind of a measuring stick for both of these teams. And the measuring stick showed that they are basically comparable.
They are
which
equally bad.
which Auburn fans will not be pleased to find that their team is equal to Mizzou. No offense to Mizzou, no, not throwing any shade, but it is what it is. And that's not really, at this point in history, not the program you want to be even with.
No,
So
the patience, like we said, the patience at Auburn is much thinner than it is at Mizzou, and they will not have this at all. I'm just saying that Gus bus, I think they're sad they missed it.
yeah, probably. He's having fun though down there at UCF. He's
living.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't he be?
He's in Florida. He's got a great climate to be in. It's great. So, all right, let's talk about the SEC on CBS game of the week. Number 20 Florida at number 11 Tennessee.
Did you realize this was as big of a rivalry? Because I didn't. I'm gonna have to admit,
yeah,
I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. Obviously, it's in conference play, so it's always a big deal.
same division.
But,
yeah,
but all of the game day stuff and all of the throwback videos and how intense it was and all of this hatred. I'm like,
yeah,
I've never once thought about Tennessee and Florida playing each other. Not once.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. And maybe just because I've known Matt for a good while, and I remember we had a group over at his house one time watching Tennessee, Florida, and it was a big deal then. And this has probably been 15 years ago now. And I just remember it was fourth quarter. I don't even remember who won, but it came down to a field goal. And I just remember Matt in the middle of the living room on his knees praying to the football gods for them to make the field goal. And it was just, oh man, it was intense. So good times. So this one, it was weird. It was it was a back and forth. It was no defense. You want to look at the yards there. You have almost 600 yards for both teams of total yards. Both teams did turn the ball over twice. But yeah, not a ton of defense overall. It was weird though. So Tennessee was kind of cruising at the end, but Florida just wouldn't go away. There's portions in the game where both quarterbacks seemed to be banged up. I know Hendon Hooker looked, I didn't know if he was going to be able to even throw the ball there for a little while. He landed on his throwing shoulder. I know that was a big concern going into half, but Heupel told the interviewer, he said he's fine. So I don't know if that was just trying to, assuage people's fears and just kind of brush it under the rug, and we'll give him a shot of the good stuff during halftime or whatever. But yeah, and then Richardson got banged up too, but he seemed to kind of bounce back as well. So, I mean, a really crazy game. I don't know why the touchdown before last, why Napier went for 2, because, and even the announcers, even Gary Danielson was like, what? Because it forced them to go for a touchdown at the end. I mean, instead of a field goal, they had that perfectly executed onside kick, and they could have gotten themselves in a position for a field goal, but instead, because of that, they were forced to go for the touchdown. And who's to say? I mean, it was a wild Saturday. Who knows what would have happened? But that's an odd decision. I just thought so. But I mean, credit to Tennessee. I mean, they got it done. They played hard through 60 minutes, as Heupel said before. Let's hear his quick thoughts on this game.
All right, Coach, one of the greatest rivalries in college football. What does this one mean to both nations?
How much fun is this, man? God, I love it. Kids competed. Battled all night long. Fans were awesome. Environment's better than anything I've ever experienced. What a win.
At one point, we didn't even know if Hendon Hooker was healthy enough to come in. What can you say about your quarterback's performance tonight?
He was electric all night long. Unbelievable job throwing the football. Used his speed opportunistically, man, and just competed, man. And everybody fed off his energy on the offense side of the ball. Hell of an effort by him tonight.
This is an incredible environment right now. But up next, you got LSU, you got Bama. What do you want the college football world to know about this program?
It's just the beginning of this journey with these guys. But I absolutely love our football team, man. They compete really hard. They practice great. They love one another. This is college football as good as it gets, man. Rocky Top's back. Let's go.
Go celebrate.
Stop
right.
saying man. It drives me insane.
You know, when I was grabbing this clip earlier, that's exactly what I thought. I thought about you pointing that out in the last time I did that, or I got a sound clip. Yeah. Now, what were your thoughts on this game?
I mean, I have to admit it, and it's because I'm a Bama fan. I don't care if Tennessee's mad at me because I don't care. I wanted Florida to win. I picked Tennessee to win in the pick'em because I knew that would happen, but I wanted Florida to win because I needed Tennessee to be taken down a few pegs. I think they're overhyped right now. I think they need to chill. And it was only their second win over Florida in the last 18 meetings, and it snapped a 6-game losing streak in the series. So if you are a Vol fan, it is a big deal. It's very exciting. Let's not have you snapping any more streaks this season.
Oh,
but it was this is their first 4-0 start since 2016, which is, it was a while ago. Obviously Hooker threw for 349 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 112 yards and a score. On the opposite side of the ball, Richardson had a career high of 453 passing yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's nuts.
And ran for 62 and 2 scores in a very tough Neyland Stadium atmosphere for him to play in. And what I think we talked about before with Richardson, and what I think I'm starting to get impressed with, is how not relaxed necessarily, but just how level-headed he seems. He said after the game, it feels good just to have fun out there and play football. It's fun. It's a blessing. What a wonderful reaction by a very young man in a tense, apparently rivalry situation after an intense game and almost lost last week. I think what a great attitude to have. He had a great night. Obviously, he threw his first touchdown pass of the season. So for me, Florida, they're going to have to do a little bit better the remainder of the season, especially in the SEC games. They need to add some dimension to their offense, because once the opposing team's defense starts to focus on containing Richardson in the pocket, it's like everything seems to go amiss. The variables of the offense are very limited. So they're going to have to work on getting some more weapons in that system and figure out what they can do when there's pressure on the pocket. He was able to avoid that pressure, and he was only sacked twice, but still it's something that as a defense I would be looking at. As far as Tennessee goes, it was hard to have Tillman out, and getting him back in, I think, will be imperative if they're going to continue to play with the elite SEC as they get into the thick of the schedule. He's a very big weapon that I think they're going to want healthy for LSU, Bama, and Kentucky to help their game plan. But overall, if you're a Vol fan, you're very happy. It was a good performance. It was close for a team that was 11 and a team that was 20. That was really close. And, I'd want to tighten some things up a bit, especially my defense.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I think you summed it up perfectly, talking about Richardson playing relaxed. The announcers were even saying, I feel like he is playing more relaxed right now on the road than he did at home. Maybe being a Florida guy, just being at home, there's all this pressure to, perform at a high level. Whereas you're on the road, it's a hostile environment. You just really just go out and play ball. You just, throw caution to the wind and just do what you do. And,
he does show that almost coolness. I was talking about it. My mom and I were watching it. We were at a sports bar watching this one, and it's not to the level of a Bryce Young calmness, but he does have that air of relaxation, level-headedness about him. And, talking afterwards, he doesn't seem flustered, which is great. It's a great thing to have. And hopefully that coolness with coaching and development will continue to get better. Maybe even next season for him.
My other note here was Florida's defense is terrible.
Oh, they're bad.
We mentioned that the defenses were struggling, but specifically in my mind, there are 2 different instances where Tennessee guys, wide receivers, were just wide open, 15, 20 yards, nobody within that distance.
Yeah, their secondary's gotta.
Yeah. So that's something to work on for sure. So All right, let's move to Tulsa at Ole Miss. Ole Miss winning this one.
The fact that we have to talk about this.
35-27. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I had this one on, so I had a bunch of them on, and I had this one on my tablet, and I was like, well, it's 35 to 17 at half. This one's, out of control. They're going to pour it on in the second half, blah, blah, blah. And then I turned around and Ole Miss hasn't scored any. and Tulsa's coming back. In fairness, I think Tulsa is like the number one passing offense in the nation, I believe, statistically. Yes. I believe. And granted, I know those comparisons are somewhat skewed depending on conferences and who your competition is, but still, consistency seems to be lacking for Ole Miss this year, and that just showed through in this game as well. It's like, okay, we dominated the first half, and then we came out in the second half and forgot to show up. Apparently, what Bryan Harsin said is true. You do have to play every down, and apparently these guys did not in the second half for a lot of it anyway. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, consistency issues is like the top note I have. And it was something that Jackson Dart mentioned in his interviews. It's something that Lane Kiffin mentioned in his interviews. Jackson Dart said, we harp on consistency and we really executed at a high level in the second quarter, said Jackson Dart. He's a transfer, obviously, but consecutive, he was efficient. He was directing consecutive touchdowns with drives of 75, 64, 93, and 46 yards. But I think he meant to say they weren't, or that was the second quarter. But the second half, it was a struggle. They had consistency issues. Kiffin said the bottom line is we are 4-0, and that's the best you can be. It's a lot better than being 2-2, which is what a lot of people around the country are right now. So he's still going to be sassy, but I think it's really important that the quarterback understands that there are consistency issues. And he finished 13 of 24 passing with 154 yards, adding 116 yards rushing on 13 carries. Overall, Ole Miss had 462 yards of total offense, including 308 on 51 carries, which highlighted by a 140 yards rushing and 27 carries by Judkins. So a lot of yards for him. But again, this game we shouldn't have had to talk about. You just keep pressing the gas pedal in the second half. And the second thing that Dart said was, we're a talented team, but we've got to make the next step in consistency, because in the second half, we shot ourselves in the foot. And that's the truth. So you have to play every play.
Yeah, for sure. And from one game that we shouldn't have to discuss to another, Northern Illinois at Kentucky. Kentucky winning this one 31-23. I got the point in this one. It's weird to think that this game had the same feel that Vandy Northern Illinois game had the week prior, but it was really the same kind of you're watching things and you're like, oh, surely Kentucky's going to pour it on now. They're going to pull away. But again, we're like nervously texting the group text about the team's struggles, including being tied at halftime. Ultimately Kentucky able to pull away and then hold off the Huskies at the end, but a little bit too close for comfort, I think, if I'm Mark Stoops. What do you think?
Yeah. In fact, Mark Stoops said overall, just a sluggish game. Good to get it behind us. We know it's a good football team. That's tough, isn't? They're going to play hard and compete for their conference championship. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, and I thought we did some good things. But that's just coach speak for, I have to say nice things about this team because my team didn't do what they were supposed to do, and we should have. Will Levis tied a career best with 4 touchdown passes, including some really critical scores of 70 and 40 yards to Berrien Brown and Robinson. After halftime, the Wildcats held off Northern Illinois 31-23. But I think the biggest issue for me is, yes, Will Levis was big in those really important moments, but he had to overcome 5 sacks to complete 18 of 26 passes for 303 yards. His third 300-yard effort this season. And a lot of those plays were big chunk plays to get those yards. But the fact that there were 5 sacks, there was so much pressure on him, and there shouldn't be. His O-line's got to step it up. He made big plays when there was pressure, which is great. But at the same time, you've got to help your quarterback out. Pass protection remains a big concern. After, again, allowing 5 sacks, those were those were important places in the game. And they have some things to correct, especially before visiting Mississippi next week. So I think the good news is their leading rusher, Chris Rodriguez Jr. returns next week from a 4-game suspension, which should help the ground game and provide some balance. But again, you've got to have pass protection, especially for a quarterback like Will Levis. It's hard to overcome those sacks. And it's going to be really hard to do when you get into the thick of SEC competition.
Yeah. So a lot to be done there. Chris Rodriguez coming back is going to be huge for them, I think. So time will tell. So, all right, let's talk about Arkansas. Man, this game. Arkansas, Texas A&M, A&M winning this one 23-21. Nobody got the point because, well, we didn't pick A&M.
It's like the Penguin beating Batman. No.
This one just, I was texting you guys. This one gutted me, man. I'm sorry, I'm getting all hypo on it. It's gutted me, man. So I can only imagine how Arkansas fans must feel. I mean, if I feel this way and I'm not even a fan.
Reports of noses.
None of that.
You're safe.
Well, it's because we put out that PSA. Everybody was watching. They were on the lookout. Arkansas got off to a fast start in this one, leading 14-0. And honestly, when it was at that point in the game, I was like, oh, well, I guess this is the look that this game is going to follow. And just we're going to see more of the same. But then A&M came back, aided in part by, love KJ Jefferson. And everyone's entitled to a bonehead play every now and then. But, man, just trying to reach you're jumping from the 4-yard line. I don't know if he thought he was going to Superman glide over everyone or what. But he didn't make it over the line, obviously. The ball got popped out. A&M grabbed the ball, started running back, and we thought surely he was going to be tackled. But before he is tackled, the A&M defensive guy hands it off to his buddy who's right next to him. And obviously no one was expecting that because he took off and no one was there. So
they got winded. It was like you say.
Yeah. So they returned that for a touchdown. But A&M then took the lead. But Arkansas had a chance at the end to kick a field goal to win it, but Cam Little's kick from 42 yards away hit the top of the upright, which I've never seen that. Like, I understand from a physics standpoint how that is possible, but man, I don't think he could do that again if he tried. Like, he could kick that.
I think I've seen it in the NFL, like the double doink for the Bears.
Yeah,
that one was gutting. It was bad.
He could kick that kick probably like 100,000 times, and it might do that maybe one or two other times. Like, that's just insane. So yeah, it doinked
so bad for him
off the top and rained tears of sorrow into the end zone. So let's listen to, I know you're thrilled, Jesse. Let's listen to what Jimbo had to say.
What did you think of your team's ability to outlast?
We are gutsy. We play hard. We just can't have the self-inflicted wounds. We had chances to put things away. We got to learn to keep some poise and execution. But listen, the fight, the heart, the guts of these guys, to be able to come out here and do that, and the drives in the second half, the defense made the changing play, and offensively we got to scroll it and get there. You could have finished at the end, but we're getting better. We just got to get better quicker.
You said that you were happy to have two ranked opponents on the schedule after the App State loss. Why?
Because I want to find out who we are. I think it gives us a chance to really stand up and find your guts. And we've got another one next week in Mississippi State, who's a great 10. That's a hard place to play. I mean, so we needed those challenges to find out who we are, and that's the best way to do it.
Thanks for the time. Congratulations.
So a couple other, another area of concern, Anaya Smith suffered a leg injury in this one. He got rolled up on and later was walking in a walking boot. So that doesn't look good. I haven't heard any more. They may have announced, but I haven't seen it as of right now. But then, so on a positive, Devon Achane's 159 yards on the ground are a career high for him. So kudos to him. So Jesse, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this one made me sad. I didn't like it very much. It was also, I didn't get to watch all of it. It was on during the Bama game. I would flip back and forth, but I didn't get to see every little bit of it. So I had to catch it when I could. And yes, I am the person that still watches that Bama win. So leave me alone. But Johnson was 11 for 21 passing, 151 yards for just his second A&M start. KJ Jefferson completed 12 of 19 passes for 171 yards and ran 18 times for 105 yards. Jefferson had a 6-yard scoring run with 10 minutes left in the game. So again, a lot of grit, but that was such a bonehead play. That is 12 feet. 12 feet. It's a very long way. I know when you say like 4 yards, you're like, oh, it's little. It's very long.
It's a long ways, yeah.
Texas, when the Aggies recovered from a slow start offensively, good on them. They went 3 and out on their first 4 drives. They trailed 14-0 after getting their initial first down on, the 63-yard run by A-Chain midway through the second quarter. But they bounced back and were able to play in a sort of neutral environment, which was still interesting to me that they had the game there. Arkansas Razorbacks they missed a chance to have consecutive 4-0 starts for the first time since 1988-89 season, which still that's rough. Yeah. But they haven't won their first 2 SEC games since 2006. And they got to 4-0 overall last year with a win over the Aggies, who had won 9 in a row in the series before that. So sucks to not have those accolades for Arkansas, especially after a lot of hype that's come to them this season. I think A&M must have started to take the Appalachian State win as a kick in the butt, but I'm still not totally impressed by A&M. And that's not just me hating Jimbo Fisher. I just don't think I've seen them be tested enough, but we'll certainly see it as they get into the thick of the schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do hate it for Arkansas. You saw guys like crying on the sidelines. Sam Pittman just looked totally sad at the press conference afterwards. And I mean, obviously he understands that he's got to get his team ready for next week, but in the moment it's disheartening for sure. So we'll see how they bounce back. They got some tough ones coming up
too.
So that'll be interesting to see how they do. So let's get into the rest of these kind of non-competitive games, also known as blowouts. Bowling Green losing to Mississippi State winning 45-14. I got the point in that one. Vandy at Alabama just running away with this one, 55-3. Jesse getting the point here. Let me run through the last 2 and then we'll come back to Bama, Jesse. New Mexico at LSU winning 38-0. I got the point. Looking at these stats, it looks like New Mexico didn't even show up, and that's for real. Like if you look at the stat line there,
88 total yards to LSU 633.
Yeah. So yeah.
First downs compared to 28. LSU even had a turnover.
Right. Yeah. And then let's see, Charlotte at South Carolina 56-20. I got the point in this one. So let's talk about Vandy.
It was so good. It was exactly what it needed to be. And it was even funnier that they had Jordan Rodgers calling the game. Although I will say Jordan Rodgers, don't talk about walking to the sidelines with a full-blown concussion, seeing stars, being dizzy, and just looking at the sideline pastor and being like, pray for me, I can't see, but I gotta go back out. No, gentlemen, we're not playing through concussions.
Yeah,
this is a very real thing. Let's not encourage that. Please don't talk about that. Jordan Rodgers. Also, if the game was so boring to the fact that he started talking about OnlyFans, like it's just,
oh gosh,
it got weird. I looked up because I wanted to see what Vandy was saying about the game. On their website, like their athletic website, they wrote 6 sentences about this game. I counted. It was 6.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, the Commodores went into Tuscaloosa and lost to Alabama. Like it was, Alabama had 4 sacks, 2.5 for Will Anderson. We outgained the Commodores 628 yards to 129. Bryce Young threw for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. We got to see everybody and their mom and their cousin and their next door neighbor play. At one point, my mom looked at me and said, "Who is that?" And I was like, "No idea. I have no idea who that person is. Never seen them before. I know some of the depth chart, but like at that point, only their mamas knew who they were because I don't know." We got in first string quarterback, second string quarterback, third string quarterback. I think everybody had a touchdown. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, as a fan, those kind of games are the best. You don't want to, have to check your blood pressure every now and then while you're watching the game. It's no fun to do that. So it's nice to have one of those every now and then. So, all right. So that is that does it for last week's games or yesterday's games, and current pick'em standings. I've got 21, Matt's got 15, and Jesse has 9.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, we'll see how things go this week as we get into the thick of the SEC schedule. All right, so let's get into a little bit of news.
Here's the news.
All right, so a new AP poll came out this afternoon. We'll just go through the top 10, and then the rest of it we'll do SEC. Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, USC. Number 7, Kentucky. Number 8, Tennessee. Number 9, Oklahoma State. And number 10, NC State. And then number 14, Ole Miss. Number 17, Texas A&M. And number 20, Arkansas. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Of course I do.
What you got?
Michigan at number 4. They struggled against a nobody yesterday.
Yeah,
no.
They did.
No. Clemson at 5. They struggled against Wake Forest. Bad. There was no defense in that game. They're not even a top 10 team. Drop them. Goodbye. USC. Okay. Who? What? What do they do? Who do they know?
It's
Kentucky. 7. No. Okay.
Maybe with some of the teams that are around them, I don't necessarily have a problem.
I mean, I guess I would move Tennessee to 8. I wouldn't. There was no defense in that game, and that differential between them and a Florida team that is not in the top 20.
Mm-hmm.
No, I leave you at 11. I don't think you're in the top 10.
Yeah.
Matt will get mad at me. I don't care. Ole Miss at 14. Okay. Why? A&M at 17. Bold move, but okay. And then Arkansas only dropped to 20. Okay, that's fair. But I question a lot. I have a lot of questions.
It's so tough with some of those up there. Like the Clemson and the USC thing. It's so difficult because it's so hard to compare teams right now.
Yeah.
Especially just seeing who they've played. And then they'll counter with, Georgia struggled against Kent State or, whoever. You could point out tons of examples why different teams in different conferences should be what they are. And really right now, we don't have much of a measuring bar as far as that goes. We will as the season goes along, though. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess that's what the AP poll is. It's just a guess.
It's just something to talk about, but it's not real.
It's not real. You're not a real coach. Yeah. So, all right. So, I think keeping in the mini-sode format, that'll do it for us for this episode. Appreciate you joining us. If you guys would like to contact us, please email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at PPSEC Podcast on Twitter. And don't forget, we're available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. We're on Amazon Music, and we are on iHeartRadio as of a few days ago. So we're just trying to get all over the place. So making it easy as possible for you to catch the show. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. We would love that. And hit follow on whatever podcast catcher you've got. We would love that and greatly appreciate it. So, until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Y'all just remember to play every play and fight, man.
That's right.
Roll Tide, y'all.